Okay, I'm going to ask a question that I don't really know the answer to. And that is, does it matter what I do or only how I do it? What I mean is, I understand the verse about whatever you do, whether you eat or drink, do it all to the glory of God. And so part of me thinks that whatever I do, I should be able to do it to the glory of God. And I do think that's probably the conclusion I'm going to come to, but I want to explore a little bit of the ideas around that. Because see, the problem is that I don't know if there's some kind of superiority. Is there superiority in being an engineer over a trash collector? Is there a superiority in what kind of things you do and how you use your time and what kind of things you devote your life to? I'm also wondering how this relates to being an ambassador for Christ. And does an ambassador for Christ have to communicate Christ in the words that they say in their message, or just in the way they conduct themselves and how they act towards other people? So when we try to communicate Christ, when we try to represent Christ, is it just a thing of how we act or how we do things, or is it also a thing of how we engage ourselves and what we do and what our actual message or occupation is? And so I think the answer to this question has a lot to do with the gifts and talents that you have. I think that God has made the different members of his body to fulfill different roles. And so if I'm really good at art, then maybe I would want to do something with art. If I'm really good at medicine, and if I really have an interest in that, I think it would be smart and be wise to devote myself to that. So I think people have different talents, and they have different passions, they have different gifts, and so engaging different activities is a good way to let people use what they have and actually enjoy themselves in the role that God has made them to do. So I don't think that there's that much superiority in terms of what occupation you do. But this other question about being an ambassador for Christ, I think perhaps there are some professions that are more communication oriented, and there are some things where you would not just be a Christian writer, you would be a writer who writes with a message of Christ. In the things that they write, they communicate Christ and they communicate truth through that. So maybe it's just that everyone should be communicating Christ in their actions, except that those actions can be different depending on what your occupation is. And so, as I was saying with writing, you would actually say it through words, and you would have that words. And of course you would use it in your conversation, and you would be a Christian in the way that you live, even outside of your job. And then for another type of person, suppose that they're involved in ministry, like nonprofit work, they would be communicating a lot more through action, but the message of Christ's love would still be getting across. And I guess there's still the question of justice and what kind of responsibilities every Christian has towards doing good to certain types of things. But I guess what I'm coming to realize is that there's really a lot of freedom in how I direct my future and what kind of things I get involved in. But I really do want to stay aware that though there is freedom, I want to be focused on making Christ my message and not just doing things because they're interesting to me, but doing them out of a love for God.